guys, I'm Caroline Porter Thomas. Thank you so much for watching EmpoweRN. So I have a video request from Stephanie Lupin who said, "Thank you so much for your website." You're welcome. "Can you tell us which units have a more positive environment and which ones have a negative culture like you mentioned?" So I am a agency nurse, which means that I float from hospital to hospital and unit to unit. And I can tell you 100% that not every unit is the same. There are some units that really work as a team. They're run very well. You're always well stocked. And I really feel like you're set up to do the best job that you can possibly do. Now, there are some units that are exactly the opposite. They're poorly run. They're many times, not stocked. There's not a lot of organization. There's a lack of team. There's a lack of camaraderie. And there's a lot of nurses that are very unhappy there. And this is a unit that may have a hard time staffing and keeping their staff. So as a new graduate, I do want to be brutally honest with you. Most of the best units really do not need new graduates. It's usually the units that are a little bit more maybe on the negative side. And I don't want to scare you because I want to just encourage you, but I'm going to encourage you at the end. So let me just tell you an example of ways to kind of spot a negative culture. I feel like, and I could be missing a lot, so if you notice something, please post a comment below and, let's try to nip this in the butt. But one thing that I notice is that there's gossiping on negative units and on negative culture units. And the gossiping is not limited to anything. They can be gossiping about the patients, about the doctors, about other nurses. And to me, as an outsider, I feel like as soon as I turn my back, they could be gossiping about me. So that's one indication that there could be a negative culture. The second thing that I notice is that there's blaming. If a patient's family member or a patient comes to somebody like the charge nurse or the director with a complaint, the question is who as opposed to what I can do. So just for an example, the other day I was working on a unit that I think is very well run. So a patient's family member came with a complaint and the director handled the complaint right then and there. She didn't do everything herself, but she just said, "Let's sit down, let's talk about this, let's see what we can do right now." And a few months ago I was working on a unit and a director was presented with a complaint and the first question was who? Who did it? And to me, when you have 6 to 7 patients, there's going to be a lot of patients that you can't do everything perfectly with. So I think who is kind of a hard question to deal with because you never know what that nurse was going through. The next thing that I see in a negative culture unit is if you ask for help, you might get an attitude back. And what I mean by that is if you ask for help from the nursing assistant or if you ask for help from the charge nurse, they may just kind of roll their eyes and say, I can't do that right now. And the truth is, I don't really blame that charge nurse or I don't really blame that nursing assistant because they truly could be in over their heads. You have no idea what they're dealing with. But at the same time, the question is, why are they so stressed out that they can't help you? So it's just, one thing that I notice. And number 4 is you may get a really unfair assignment. So one day I was on a unit. The unit was very large and I had patients on all 4 hallways. And that day, I think I walked 7 or 8 miles. So to me, that could be a sign of an unfair assignment that maybe wasn't totally necessary. So I'm going to tell you a story of a situation that I had that really helped me spot a negative culture unit. One day, I was really busy. I had 5 patients with no PCA, which is a patient care assistant, like a nursing assistant. And I was changing my patient, and I was all done with that. She asked for some water. And so I was going out to get water. When I came back, I was kind of like in a hallway area, but when I approached the hallway, there was an open area, and about 40 feet in front of me, the nursing director and the charge nurse were staring there. They were just standing there staring. And I was like, I didn't know what they were staring at, so I just kind of waved. I was like, "Hey, is everything okay?" And then they just kind of threw their heads up and they turned around and walked away. And I had no idea what was going on. So I was just like, well, okay, whatever, let me just focus on my job, Anyways, come to find out, about 5 minutes later, the charge nurse came to me and said, "The call light was on behind you and you didn't see it and you didn't answer it." I didn't hear the call bell and I didn't see it. So for me, I was just wondering why the director and the charge nurse didn't just say, hey, can you answer that call light? See what the patient wants. Those are kind of like little things that I feel like are unnecessary, but that we kind of have to deal with as nurses. I feel like there's a few ways that I could deal with that situation. The first thing that I could do is ask why. Why did they do that? You know, to me, that didn't make any sense. I wouldn't have done that. I could have gone to the director and said, why did you do that? Why didn't you just tell me? And maybe that's the right thing to do in many cases. What I choose to do many times is just to focus on how I can become much better in this situation. So I just focus on how I can become much more aware. Maybe I do need to start, looking around and noticing the call lights, or maybe I do need to listen more intently. So what I've noticed is that if you're asking this question, why, this question can really infuriate you. But the truth is, you're never going to know the answer. I will never know why that director didn't just come to me and say, hey, can you answer that call light? Which I would have graciously done. I will never know why she didn't say that. I will never know what series of events led her to being upset at that point. Maybe she had just gotten chewed out by her boss and she was just totally upset, or maybe there were 20 call lights on and mine was just one of many, and that was just the final straw that had her throwing up her head, upset at me. And maybe she wasn't upset at me at all. Maybe she was upset at all of the nurses. Who knows? But if you ask the question why, I think you will find that it can seriously infuriate you and you can just get so upset. The question that I choose to ask, and this is my choice, is I choose to ask myself this question: what else can I do? And guys, in my book, New Nurse, How to Get, Keep, and Love Your First Job, I spend a lot of time focusing on this question. I'm going to repeat it again. What else can I do? If you keep repeating this question in your head, you have no idea of the power that it gives you. Because think about it, if I ask the question, why they, then I'm giving that power away. But if I say, what else can I do? Then I'm empowering myself to become a much better person. Also, what I've noticed is that this question will save you so much time. One day I was at work and my head was racing and I was like, how can I do all this? I'm so behind. I don't know what to do. Blah, blah, blah. And my mind was just going a million miles a minute. I had such disorganized thought. Like I couldn't even think. I couldn't even breathe. So I just took a deep breath in and I said, what else can I do? And in 30 seconds, I was able to map out a plan on my sticky notes, and I went through it and I did everything very well. So ultimately, working on a unit that has a negative culture can only really help you. It can only make you a much better, stronger, focused, disciplined individual. Now, like I said, since many of the units that everybody wants to work on that have a positive culture are hard to get into, most new graduates do have to kind of deal with these negative culture units for a good while. But I would like to encourage you that, once you have put in your time, about 1 to 2 years, or your contract is up, you don't have to stay there. You can always, go to a unit and try to just grow and just try to experience all that the nursing field has to offer. So guys, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, then just post a comment and let me know. Alright, I love you guys. I cannot wait to see you soon. Bye!